Catenaccio or the chain is a tactical system in football with a strong emphasis on defense. In Italian, Catenaccio means door bolt, which implies a highly organized and effective backline defense focused on nullifying opponents' attacks and preventing goal-scoring opportunities. History: the system was made famous by the Argentine trainer Helenio Herrera of Internazionale in the 1960s, who used it to grind out small-score wins, such as 1-0 or 2-1, over opponents in their games. The Catenaccio was influenced by the Vero system invented by Austrian coach Karl Rappan. As coach of Switzerland in the 1930s and 1940s, Rappan played a defensive sweeper called the Verrouilleur, that was highly defensive and was positioned just ahead of the goalkeeper. In the 1950s, Nurio Rocco's Padova pioneered the system in Italy, where it would be used again by the Internazionale team of the early 1960s. Rappan's Vero system, proposed in 1932, when he was coach of Servette, was implemented with 4 fixed defenders, playing a strict man-to-man marking system, plus a playmaker in the middle of the field who played the ball together with 2 midfield wings. Rocco's tactic, often referred to as the real Catenaccio, was shown first in 1947 with Triestina. The most common mode of operation was a 1-3-3-3 formation with a strictly defensive team approach. With Catenaccio, Triestina finished the Serie A tournament in a surprising second place. Some variations include 1-4-4-1 and 1-4-3-2 formations. The key innovation of Catenaccio was the introduction of the role of a libero defender, also called sweeper, who was positioned behind a line of 3 defenders. The sweeper's role was to recover loose balls, nullify the opponent's striker and double mark when necessary. Another important innovation was the counter-attack, mainly based on long passes from the defense. In Herrera's version in the 1960s, 4-man marking defenders were tightly assigned to each opposing attacker, while an extra sweeper would pick up any loose ball that escaped the coverage of the defenders. The emphasis of this system in Italian football spawned the rise of many top Italian defenders who became known for their hard tackling, ruthless defending. Defenders such as Tarcisio Bergnic in the 1960s, Claudio Gentile and Gaetano Siria in the 1970s, Giuseppe Bergami, Pietro Viracciod and Franco Baresi in the 1980s, the famous all-Italian Milan defensive four of Franco Baresi, Paolo Maldini, Alessandro Costa Curta and Mauro Tassotti of the 1990s and 2006 World Cup winners Fabio Cannavaro and Alessandro Nesta and many others in 2000s formed the backbone of the Italian national team and also played vital roles in the success of their respective Serie A clubs. However, despite the defensive connotations, Herrera claimed shortly before his death that the system was more attacking than people remembered, saying the problem is that most of the people who copied me wrongly. They forgot to include the attacking principles that my Catenaccio included. I had Picky as a sweeper, yes, but I also had Facchetti, the first fullback to score as many goals as a forward. Zona Mista, Total Football, invented by Rinus Michels in the 1970s, rendered Herrera's version of Catenaccio rather obsolete. In Total Football, no player is fixed in his nominal role. Anyone can assume in the field the duties of an attacker, a midfielder or a defender, depending on the play. Man marking alone was insufficient to cope with this fluid system. Coaches began to create a new tactical system that mixed man marking with zonal defense. In 1972, Michel's Ajax defeated Inter 2-0 in the European Cup final and Dutch newspapers announced the destruction of Catenaccio at the hands of Total Football. In 1973, Ajax crushed Ser Maldini's Milan 6-0 for the European Super Cup in a match in which the defensive Milan system was destroyed by Ajax. In pure zonal defense, every midfielder and defender is given a particular zone on the field to cover. When a player moves outside his zone, his teammate expands his zone to cover the unmarked area. However, Catenaccio philosophy called for double marking when dealing with strong players. Zona Mista was created by Enzo Berzot, combining the strength of zonal marking with that of Catenaccio. In Zona Mista, there are 4 defenders. A sweeper is free to roam and assist other defenders. A fullback plays in both defensive and advanced position, typically on the left flank. The two stoppers, who started then to be called centre-back, mark their zones. In the midfield, there are defensive midfielder, centre midfielder and the playmaker and a winger who covers typically the right flank and sometimes acts as an additional striker. Zona mista employs two-prong attack. A centre forward plays up front. A second striker plays wide to the left and drifts inside to act as a striker or to cover the playmaker when the playmaker drops into a defensive position. Zona mista came to dominate Italian football in the late 1970s and early 1980s and reached its height with the Italian national team in their victory in the 1982 FIFA World Cup. Classy and skillful Gaetano Cirio was the libero, Fulvio Colivati and tough-tackling Claudio Gentile the centre-backs, Antonio Cabrini the left wing-back. Gabriele Oriali played as a holding midfielder, Marco Tardelli centre midfielder and Giancarlo Antognini as playmaker. The popularity of Zona mista, however, eventually led to its undoing as Italian teams became predictable due to by the late 1970s and early 1980s everybody in Italy was playing it, and everyone marked man-to-man according Italian journalist Ludovico Marradi. Hamburg would expose the predictability of this style against Juventus with a defensive approach in the 1983 European Cup final. Catenaccio today, pure Catenaccio is no longer used in the modern football tactics. Two major characteristics of this style the man-to-man marking and the libero position are no longer in use. Highly defensive structures with little attacking intent are often labeled as Catenaccio, but deviates from the original design of the system. Modern teams have all moved away from man-marking defensive schemes in favor of zonal marking systems. Moreover, the sweeper or libero position has virtually disappeared from the modern game since the 1980s because teams favored deploying the extra man in another area of the pitch. Catenaccio is often thought to be commonplace in Italian football. However, it is actually used infrequently by Italian Serie A teams, who instead prefer to apply balanced tactics and formations, mostly 4-3-3 or 3-5-2. The Italian national football team with manager Ser Prandelli also used the 3-5-2 in their first clashes of UEFA Euro 2012 Group C and then switched to their standard 4-4-2 formation UEFA Euro 2012 final. Italy's previous coaches, Ser Maldini and Giovanni Trapattoni, used the Catenaccio at international level, and both failed to reach the top. Italy, under Maldini, lost on penalties at the 1998 FIFA World Cup quarter-finals, while Trapattoni lost early in the second round at 2002 FIFA World Cup and lost at the UEFA Euro 2004 during the first round. However, Catenaccio has also had its share of success stories. Trapattoni himself successfully employed it in securing a Portuguese Liga title with Benfica in 2005. German coach Otto Rehagel also used a similarly defensive approach for his Greece national football team in UEFA Euro 2004, going on to win the tournament despite his team being heavy underdogs. Dino Zoff also put Catenaccio to good use for Italy, securing a place in the UEFA Euro 2000 final, which Italy only lost on the golden goal rule to France. Likewise, Aslio Vicini led Italy to the 1990 FIFA World Cup semi-final thanks to small wins in 6 hard-fought defensive games in which Italy produced little but risked even less, totaling only 7 goals for and none against. Italy would then lose a tight semi-final to Argentina, due in no small part to a similar strategy from Carlos Bilardo, who then went on to lose the final to a much more offensive-minded Germany led by Franz Beckenbauer. Similarly, when Italy was reduced to 10 men in the 50th minute of the 2006 FIFA World Cup second-round match against Australia, coach Marcello Lippi changed the Italians' formation to a defensive orientation which caused the British newspaper The Guardian to note that the timidity of Italy's approach had made it seem that Helenio Herrera, the high priest of Catenaccio, had taken possession of the soul of Marcello Lippi. It should be noted, however, that the 10-man team was playing with a 4-3-2 scheme, just a midfielder away from the regular 4-4-2. After the 2006 World Cup, the media picked up the fact that modern international football is becoming increasingly defensive. The number of goals scored in that World Cup was only 147, and the Golden Boot winner Miroslav Klose only scored 5 goals as opposed to the 8 of the previous winner, Ronaldo. See also, Total Football, Anti-Football, Formation, Football Tactics and Skills, Notes. References: Giulianotti, Richard, Football, A Sociology of the Global Game. London, Polity Press 2000. ISBN 0-7456-1769-7, Trapattoni, Giovanni, Coaching High Performance Soccer. Spring City, Pennsylvania, Reed Swain Incorporated 2000. ISBN 1-890946-37-0, External links, Italy, Germany FA 1982.